Are you still struggling to believe that all the tiny things you do count, that they're meaningful? Join me today as we talk about how to find your own wins every day, even when you tell yourself that you're not creating any. Hello, my friend. You are listening to Weight Loss Made Real, and this is episode 286. I'm your host, Master Weight Loss Coach and author, Cookie Rosenblum. Today and every Tuesday, I am your coach and your guide to help you stop overeating and lose that extra weight. If you want to lose weight, the first thing that must happen is for you to stop overeating. And that's what we do right here. This is where coaching meets psychology and psychology meets brain science. This is where your problem ends and freedom begins. Before we dive into our coaching session today, I just want to remind you that if you're on the wait list for the Freedom Group, and if you're listening to me in real time when this episode is published, don't forget to check your email today. We have a special surprise only for our waitlist people, and it ends very soon. All right, let's jump into our coaching topic for today. How to find and focus on your own wins every day. I want you to think back to last week's episode 285, about why we all tend to focus on negative things and how to switch that to focus on what's going well. I want you to remember why it's important to understand this and to change what you tend to focus on. Remember that your brain is wired to look at what's wrong, and it does this instinctively to protect you. But if you do that most of the time and focus on what's not going well, you will be inadvertently creating more of what you don't want. And you won't be celebrating what you've done right, which is what you really want to create more of. Remember that we all tend to do this because maybe we're not totally at our goal yet, so you think all those little wins don't count. Today, I'm going to show you how to find those small wins in your daily life so you can congratulate yourself, feel good, and create more wins. I also want to remind you that in the last episode, we talked about how when it comes to positive and negative experiences, our brains are like Velcro with negative things and like Teflon with positive things. I want to give you an example today of how I just experienced my brain sticking like Velcro to something negative and letting all the good things slide away, just like food in that Teflon pan. Now, my brain is just like yours. Sometimes, despite lots of knowledge about how my brain works and lots of evidence that I am doing some things well, one negative comment can stick with me, just like you. Last week, I got an email notice of a new podcast review. I always love to read them because I so appreciate your feedback, and I love hearing how you're benefiting from the ideas I'm sharing with you all. It warms my heart, truly. Well, this review was not so good. It was 1 star, and it really focused on criticizing my voice. Most of you know that in the past few years, yes, my voice has changed. It's definitely deeper, and it's a little froggier from all the medical treatment that I've had in that area. But here's the part of this story that's interesting. My podcast is shared by so many of you, my dear listeners, and I've received hundreds of 5-star reviews and have had millions of downloads by happy listeners. And yet, just like you, once I read the negative review, my brain kept going over it, ruminating, just like we talked about in last week's podcast. I smiled to myself once I saw what I was doing with all the ruminating about this one low review, and with a little help from my team, because my human brain, just like yours, was sticking like Velcro to the negative review and was treating all the wonderful reviews like something sliding off Teflon. We are not immune to this. We are human. But if we're aware of it as it happens, it's easier to step back and self-correct and think, okay, I see what I'm doing and I understand why I'm doing it. Also, so many of you and my Freedom Group members say each week, thank you for this podcast. It was exactly what I needed to hear today. Well, it turns out that sometimes my own podcast is also exactly what I need to hear myself on any given day. So today we're going to continue our discussion of why we tend to focus on the negative, why we should focus on the positive, and how to do it. Because this is something we all need to hear, and I need to reinforce even for me. When you aren't at your goal yet, and I ask you what you might be thinking about how you're doing, you might say, I'm not doing anything right. But this is not true. It's just a perspective that your brain leans toward. Like taking the same streets to work every day, you go that way automatically. You might think that the small things you're doing right are too small to count. But I want to remind you that it all counts. It all adds up. And everything you do takes you either in the right direction or in the wrong direction. So how do you start training yourself to put your spotlight on what you are doing well or what is going at least in the right way? Remember when you were a child? Well, I know we weren't all lucky enough to have this, but I hope that you were. If you were lovingly taken care of, maybe you had parents or caregivers or a loving older mentor who checked in with you. They hopefully praised lots of things you did that day, things that you'd consider ordinary, like, wow, you got dressed yourself, you ate your lunch, you did your homework, you brushed your teeth. Yes, these were ordinary things that you were doing, but for you at the time, they were new. You were learning, and that praise, that focus on what you did well, helped you take more and more steps in the right direction. Today, I'm going to show you how to look at your days and how to purposely look for what you're doing well. So even 1 inch better than you had been doing, so that you feel good and can keep moving forward. We're going to start by sectioning your day into different parts, like morning, midday, afternoon, end of the day, early evening, and nighttime. We'll be looking at your day as you transition from one part to the next. I want you to think about what you've trained yourself to focus on in each part of your day. And we're going to switch your negative bias to a more positive bias. We're not pretending that you're doing well, but you're switching your focus on what you did do that was positive or what you didn't do that you might usually do that's negative. These are both wins. We're looking for wins, okay? Here are some examples of what you could look for in each part of the day. Maybe you never counted these things before. Maybe you thought they were too small or too simple and didn't matter. But it all counts. It all adds up. So we're not just looking for what you did right, but we're retraining your brain to put your attention more regularly on those little wins. So think about this morning. You got up, right? Did you move your body at all? Did you check your hunger before eating? Let's assume that you had a morning meal. Think about what you ate and where your hunger level was when you started eating and when you stopped. Did you do any self-care, skincare, your hair, body lotion? And how was your mental attitude, your mood? You create this, positive or negative, by what you're thinking. So how are you doing? What positive thoughts can you give yourself credit for? You got dressed, right? When you were looking in the mirror to get dressed, did you just happen to skip putting yourself down? about how you think you look? That's a win, my friend. As you get ready, what are your thoughts about yourself? Are any of them at all supportive? And your thoughts about your day? Are you planting any seeds of powerful, positive ideas about yourself and your day that put you in a good place? These are wins. Think about how you'll deal with food for the rest of the day, lovingly planning what and where and when you might eat. That is all self-care. That's a win. Any one of these little things, if you did any of them, they go into the win category. Even if they feel small, check them as a win. Put your focus on them for a few minutes and allow yourself to feel proud without adding the but I didn't do blank. All right, now let's look at what you're doing at midday. Ideally, I'd like you to check in on your mood and on how you're feeling physically. And what's your hunger level? Again, these are all self-care thoughts. They're focusing on finding out and then giving yourself what you truly need. This is focusing on positives that you're doing. Good job if you are. Look at your plan for the rest of the day. Look at your list of things to do. Are you mixing in being productive with just being? If so, you're managing yourself. This is a win. Are you overwhelmed? If you pause and look at what thoughts are creating that overwhelm, that is a plus. That counts. Yes, that's a win. Do you need to adjust your list? Do you need to adjust your thoughts about your list? Win. Are you aware of what's going right so far in your day, of what you've accomplished? Put your focus on this instead of just how much more you have to do. Another win. Are you getting up and moving just a little bit? Taking any short breaks from whatever you've been doing? Have you been able to stick to your eating plan for lunch? Win. Focus on that. Let's move into the afternoon and the end of your day. Check in with your energy levels again. This is self-care. Check your mood periodically. It takes literally a second to do each one of these things. And while we're at it, check in on your thirst and your hunger. Put your focus on the fact that you're a grown-up who's managing herself and her day. Good job. This might be a good time to reassess your to-do list. See what's left and what's realistic and what is not. Is there any self-care you might add in, even a tiny thing? Knowing what you need and filling that need is going to make you feel confident and in charge of you and basically really, really good. And one more question. What do you have to look forward to for your evening? You're putting your focus on good things. Do you have a commute? How can this be more pleasant? Instead of dreading the ride or the walk, look at it from a positive focus. Time for you to read or think or listen to music or just mentally pat yourself on the back for what you did today. Have you planned your evening meal? Or maybe you even prepped your evening meal. Did you set up anything to look forward to? Do you overall feel good about what you did today? Find something good that you did today. How did you manage your mind? Do you feel good about any of your interactions today? Did you keep your word to someone? Did you keep your word to yourself, even if it was not 100%? Notice how all of these prompts are gently guiding you to turn your mind toward good things, toward things you did right or well, things that help you stay focused on your positives. All right, early evening or when you get home from whatever you did that day, ask, how did the day go? How's the evening going? Did you care for yourself with what you really needed this evening? Did you have a wind-down routine? Look for what you're doing right, even if it's not completely right. I know you're getting the gist of this. As you move into evening, ask, did you perform any self-care routines tonight? Did you not beat yourself up for things that you didn't do today? Did you focus on what you did get done today? Did you follow a guideline, I hope, that said the kitchen is closed for the night? These are all small but important wins that add up, and we are directing our focus on them. There are so many things you do without giving yourself credit and that you don't pay attention to. But remember, you're looking for wins daily, so your mind begins to be more focused on what's going well, because that's simply what you want to create more of. All of these things that we're talking about that I want you to pay attention to add up and are like a tipping point. They create and then reinforce a belief in yourself that you can get where you want to go. You start to understand and believe that no win is too small to pay attention to because that's what you want more of. And hopefully soon, if not today, you start to realize that you don't go from not being able to do something or not being able to do it well to suddenly waking up and doing it perfectly. It works eventually as you accumulate tiny bits of evidence that you can do something, and then you start to feel proud and become more confident. And then it's easier to continue on this path, on this journey to become a natural eater and to manage your mind and to take great care of yourself. If you tell yourself, well, what I did is not a big deal, it's too small to count, you are unrealistically thinking that change is an all or nothing process. You might also think taking an action of change comes before you work on thinking differently. You think that you'll believe in yourself when you see the changes, but you will see the changes you want when you believe in yourself. Focusing on all these small wins helps you believe in you, and this positive focus helps you keep going, and it helps you get in the habit of looking for more positive evidence that you can change. There's no magical finish line where you can think, oh, look, I'm doing what I said I would do. I'm changing. You have to look for all the little clues along the way that add up to you at your best, the version of you who's optimistic about your abilities because you understand how change happens. You do what you can to encourage yourself. You are patient. You understand that where you put your focus leads to where you land. And you give yourself a high five or a pat on the back, not when you do a perfect job, but when you're going in the right direction. Wins are there, but you have to choose to consciously find them, and that's what we did today. When you practice doing this, you're overriding your lower brain, which is always looking for fails. So I hope you keep focusing on your wins, no matter how small they are, and then I want you to get excited. Will it feel strange to say, hey, I said I would order a salad for lunch and I did. Yay me. Yes, it might feel strange and it might feel like you're exaggerating a tiny thing. But the more emotion you put into a thought, the more your brain gets the message that this one is a keeper. And this works both ways. If you focus on the negatives that happen or that you do, and then are angry or frustrated about, you're wiring those negative thoughts into your brain and making them stronger and giving them a priority pathway in your brain. So let's use this simple interpretation of brain science to deliberately decide to focus on what you want more of and less on what you don't want to keep around. I'd love for you to think about this and observe how you go through one of your typical days. And notice what you say to yourself before you change it. It all counts. Okay, you know what you're going to think about and do this week. Before you go, if you have not yet, be sure to download your most important starting point to stopping overeating, my free mini course on how to stop overeating in 3 steps at weightlossmadereal.com/3 steps, the number 3. This mini training will lead you to my proven method, Eat, Think, Love. And this method has helped thousands of women finally end overeating by using the power of your brain and psychology. You can start using it immediately and start seeing results right away. This is my gift to you to end the struggle and stop overeating once and for all. So for now, this is your Coach Cookie reminding you that as you search for answers, keep it real, just like you. And I will see you next week.